What's up, people? Welcome to another exciting breaking news edition of the Black and Gold Hour podcast. It's your host, Merv, man, and I'm glad you guys are here with me tonight because tonight is a special night. We stayed up all night. I know we're tired, but we're here. The NFL draft is here today, and the New Orleans Saints have picked about 20 minutes ago. They picked their first round draft pick. Now, Saints fans, over the last couple months, no matter how you felt about the Saints, no matter if you felt like they were still contenders or if you felt like they, were being a rebuild for the next couple of years, you knew how important the 2021 NFL draft was, and the first round pick is here. So here to help me talk about the first round pick, our first night's experience, is my boy, my friend, basically a co-host. He's always on the show, my guy, Mike Balko. How you doing today, man?
I'm blessed and highly favored as always, my boy. Always a pleasure to join your show.
Man, I'm happy to have you here on today's episode because it's a lot to unpack. We won't take you guys, it's too much time to got you guys for tonight's episode, but we kind of just wanted to do a quick recap of what we saw tonight and what we think about the draft moving forward. So Mike, to get started, I kind of want to ask you, as I stated before, and as we talked about, the Saints had a lot of position needs. The Saints lost Quan Alexander, linebacker, wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, and cornerback starter Janoris Jenkins. So what we talked about in a couple of episodes ago and what we've talked about over the course of the day is the Saints' most desired draft need. And I want to ask you, going into tonight, after the players the Saints had to release, after what we saw in the divisional loss, what did you think the Saints' most important position need was going into the draft?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious what the most desired position, as far as like what all of us Saints fans wanted. We wanted a corner or we wanted a linebacker, and worst case scenario, we wanted a receiver. You know what I mean? And we did not get any of those yet, at least. But hey, I trust Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis to do their thing. So hey. But we'll talk about that pick later. But yeah, especially with like all like the pre-draft hype and everything regarding the Saints, and potentially trading up into the top 10 to land, a big name prospect, we kind of got our hopes up. We're like, oh man, we actually might be able to get J.C. Horn, or we might be able to get Patrick Surtain, something along the lines of that. Or maybe even like looking at potentially Micah Parsons falling, see where that winds up. The Saints could have done worse in the first round, but they also could have done a heck of a lot better. But, I think corner and linebacker were the two most desirable needs. And, I'm really excited to see the way the rest of this draft pans out and see if we can end up addressing those.
Yeah, man. And in typical Sean Payton fashion, I feel like since Sean Payton came to the Saints in 2006, it's always been, unexpected. Onside kick to start the first half, going for Marcus Davenport. Just a lot of unexpected things happened. And over the last 4 years, though the team was great, phenomenal Super Bowl caliber team, there was unexpected losses. And I feel like that's the theme of the first round pick tonight. Going into the draft, even though we were missing a second cornerback with the release of Janoris Jenkins, and we need some wide receivers that can make immediate impacts. I felt like linebacker was very important. Outside of Demario Davis, we have Zach Bond and Caden Ellis, good players, athletic guys, but not players that, have been proven in the NFL level. So I felt like the linebackers, Jamar Chase, you had Jamin Davis, you had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and he was so close. He was available. And that was a player that I really wanted to see in the black and gold this season. But as Mickey Loomis, as the scouts, as Sean Payton do, they keep us on our toes and they kind of caught us off guard. So let's get into it. Let's get into the Saints first round pick. At the 28th spot, they pick Payton Turner, defensive end out of Houston, which caught us all off guard, man. So he's athletic. He's a big guy. And, at defensive end, we have Marcus Davenport. We have Cam Jordan. And, they're good. That wasn't like a position that we felt like was an immediate need. That was going to take the Saints from divisional round loss to Super Bowl. And I kind of want to ask you, what's your reaction? What's your fresh initial firsthand reaction to what happened tonight?
I mean, thankfully, I've had about 10 minutes to calm down. No, I think my first initial reaction was the same as everybody, in Saints Twitter, Who Dat Nation, the whole 9 yards, bro. We're just like, it's almost laughable at the mistakes, the seemingly blatantly obvious mistakes we continue to make. But somehow, some way, it always works out. You know what I mean? So Payton Turner, my initial reaction was, I had him in all of my mock drafts. He never once went in the first round. Half the time, he barely went halfway through the second round. He's definitely a guy I feel like, especially with the Saints at least seemingly being more aggressive in this year's draft, we could have traded up early into the second round to get if we really liked him that much. Because I don't see any potential threat really in the first, half of the draft tomorrow night in the second round. He's definitely a guy I feel like we could have gotten like midway through the second. But, he also has that really big boom year in 2020. Dude had a really good year in 2020. He only played 5 games, 25 tackles, 10.5 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks in those 5 games for Houston. Obvious concerns are like his level of play. He played for Houston, didn't go against the greatest opponents, and then, injuries have been a concern for him, reliability, staying on the field, which is not what you want to hear. But yeah, I think my very first initial reaction when I saw the highlights of Payton Turner and I just kind of saw his stature, I was like, this is Marcus Davenport 2.0, which is not what Saints fans want to hear at all. Davenport's been good. He hasn't been great. And, we're at the point in our franchise where we need great picks and not good picks. So.
Right, exactly. This is like a turning point for the franchise. I don't know about you. I don't know about the rest of Who Dat Nation, but I'm really excited about this season. It's the post Drew Brees era. It's something we've never seen before. It's a lot going on. Now, earlier today, we were hearing reports that the Saints will move up to the top 10. They were trying. And about an hour before the draft, we realized that was not going to happen. So as the night went on, and it's been a long night, we see top names starting to go, but there's plenty of big names still in the draft. And I think this is one of the deepest drafts as far as players that can make an immediate impact on most teams. So we're shocked. Payton Turner, defensive end. The NFL on the show, it showed his highlights. We barely saw any highlights. It was like, who is this guy? He's a big guy. And defensive end is a need for the team, but it wasn't one of the top needs. I wouldn't even say top 3, maybe not even top 5 for the team right now. And I don't know. I want to kind of take that pick and I want to ask you, with this pick, how do you feel about the New Orleans Saints? Do you feel like this may be a rebuilding year? Do you feel like a defensive end, having a player like Payton Turner, could take this team to the next level? Or is we still need a lot more talent to be able to take this team to the next level to avoid another playoff loss?
Yeah, it's very, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's just very it really just kind of depends on your outlook on life, really, as a whole. If you want to look at the glass half full, the Saints could have made this pick because they're very confident in what they have in other positions. They could be extremely confident in PJ Williams at corner and maybe very, very confident in their own drafting abilities to find some diamonds in the rough later in the draft, things like that. But if you're looking at it glass half empty, you're like, bro, we could have completely revamped our linebacking unit with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, or we could have gotten a great receiver, off the board. And there's so many other good receivers there. Asante Samuel Jr. we could have picked up. That corner from Georgia we could have snagged. Like, there's just a lot of other really, really good talent we could have snagged. But at the same time, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I have no reason not to trust Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis. I don't have a reason. The only bad pick they've had in the past 5 years, really, except for like Stephon Anthony, is Marcus Davenport, and he's panned out decent. You know, if we didn't trade up to get him and we got him where we were originally supposed to pick, he would be just fine. And you know, that's the outlook we should be having as Saints fans. We didn't have to trade up. It's not like we got rid of next year's first round pick for him. You know what I mean? And there's still a whole draft to go. We have some great picks. You know, we have a couple more picks in the top 100, and then we have a pick barely outside of the top 100. There's a ton of great talent still in this draft. And there's still, I mean, Dylan Moses is a guy who's going to drop into that third round. We could get a steal in Dylan Moses in the third round, and it'll be similar to what the Saints did with Adam Troutman and Zach Bond last year. We got those dudes in the third round, and, you know, it's just fantastic, you know. It could be the similar situation, you know, like our first round pick was Cesar Ruiz last year, but he was completely overshadowed by the potential we have in Adam Troutman and Zach Bond. So it could be a very similar situation to that with Payton Turner. Granted, I think he's going to be okay. It just kind of makes you raise your eyebrows, and it's just really confusing because obviously the news earlier about Marcus Davenport picking up his fifth-year option is a little bit kind of like, what are the Saints going to do with him? You know, do they trust him? Are they planning on having a 1-2 punch? But then, and, you know, or maybe they're thinking about dealing Davenport. I know I tweeted it earlier, like maybe Marcus Davenport's on the trading block and they needed to make sure they got a good first round talent at defensive end to step in. You know, I know they like what they have in Carl Granderson. His workouts have been very impressive this offseason. He's got a lethal spin move. But Payton Turner, you know, the scouting report on him, he's got length, great hand usage, rare agility to bend for his size, and he's got speed to power, which is very similar to Marcus Davenport, but I feel like he's a bit more polished. He's not coming out of UTSA. He's coming out of Houston, which is a respectable school. It's not huge, but it's respectable. And I mean, the only real concerns he has is his pad level, his counter moves, and his level of competition, you know, all areas that easily can be fixed in coaching. And a bunch of scouts ranked him, you know, they always do their pro comparisons, and his pro comparison is Chandler Jones. And I will take that pro comparison any day of the week. If he pans out to be Chandler Jones opposite of Cameron Jordan, with a guy like Granderson coming off the bench to substitute in, man, oh man, the Saints defensive line could be just as good after we got rid of Rankins and Brown and all these other big names. It could be just as effective, if not better. And I mean, not to carry on the question too much longer, but we have seen Marcus Davenport play on the interior quite a bit at defensive tackle. I know the Saints are thin at defensive tackle. Payton Turner, I know, has the ability to play defensive tackle as well. So maybe they kind of want to use him in that role, in which case, you know, we have Jordan, we have Davenport, we have Granderson rotating, and we have Payton Turner to go along with Onyemata, Shai Tuttle. Those guys, defensive line ain't looking too bad, you know, especially when you have, you know, two dudes like Davenport and Turner who are 6'6" frames, both weighing in like the 250s, 260s. That's pretty scary if you have to block that. So, you know, I think the Saints definitely have a plan. They definitely know what they're doing. And, you know, I really think that just because of how deep this draft class is, you know, the Saints felt like they could make a move like this in the first round.
And as you began to talk, I thought to myself, we as Saints fans and Who Dat Nation in whole, we always feel like the Saints don't take what's given. Sometimes you'll see Alvin Kamara run for 8 yards and then he's pulled off the field the next play. Sometimes we will see Latavius Murray ball and then he's taken off the field the next play, and we scream at the TV, we go on Twitter, we go on these rants, and we talk about how the Saints don't stick with their bread and butter. But as I began to think, isn't the defensive line of the Saints their bread and butter? Hasn't that been their bread and butter for the last 2 seasons, I want to say? I mean, over the Peyton Breeze era, it was always offense. Then it switched to the defense, but it was never really the secondary. I mean, Marshawn, Marcus Williams are very consistent players at times, but I do want to say that the defensive line has that depth. And maybe the Saints are just sticking with their bread and butter. Maybe they're just sticking with what works. Hey, and having a quality defensive line is scary for any team in the NFL. But now I kind of want to ask you, and I'll start first. When it comes to the Saints next pick, what is their most important position? And I'm honestly thinking cornerback, man. It's important if the defense is gonna be your bread and butter, it's important to have a reliable option outside of Marshawn Lattimore at cornerback. I mean, we've seen what PJ Williams can do at nickel, which is pretty consistent. There wasn't a lot of inconsistent play with PJ Williams last year. I think he had a great year for his role. But now we need someone who can guard, these wide receivers in the NFC South. It's a lot of talent. You got Julio Jones, you got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and we're going to need a reliable, number 2 corner. So I want to ask you, in your opinion, whether you agree or not, what's the most important draft pick for the Saints coming up?
I got to agree with you, bro. Corner all the way. Yeah, corner. And then I think a close second might shock some people. I'm going to say receiver. And here's the reason why. I don't think I really need to explain corner too much. You just kind of hit the nail on the head, but I guess I'll explain myself for wide receiver. Like you mentioned earlier in the show, it's the post-Breeze era. When we had Drew Brees, we could rely on Drew Brees rolling with some no names at receiver. But we have Jameis Winston now. We don't have Drew Brees anymore. We can't be banking on that. And like you mentioned, like in the Breeze Payton era, our bread and butter was always the offense. Our defense lacked, and the defensive line was always stout, but the rest of our defense lacked. But we can't afford that this year. The defense can lack a little bit, but I mean, we still have main pieces on the defense that can pick up the slack, and we've seen it happen even with big names on the defense. We've still seen guys like Janoris Jenkins get cooked in the playoffs. We've still seen guys, like Davenport really not produce, or we've seen, linebackers get injured all the time, like Anzalone and Quan Alexander. We've seen backups have to step in, like Craig Robertson and guys along the lines of that. So we're kind of used to being a little bit thin on the defense. It always happens regardless. So we're used to it. You know what I mean? So that's why I think Payton Turner is not a bad pick, but that's why I also think receiver is an important pick. And it's important to get a good receiver because we saw what happened when we were thin at receiver last year. Even Drew Brees couldn't save us. You know what I mean? We were having to use our backup quarterback for crying out loud. Granted, Taysom Hill is outstanding at what he does, but he's training to be a quarterback this offseason. He's not training to continue to be in that flex role. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just receivers really important, and there's still some really, really talented names on the board. I would love to see the Saints try and get Rondale Moore from Purdue or some other names. Diami Brown, I know you're huge on him. He's still on the board. So there's some massive, massive, massive impact players that the Saints could snag. And I think, just because the Saints have a pair of third-round picks and just because the Saints have a lot of confidence in the guys they already have on the team, I think that's where you could – afford to just kind of continue this trend, I guess, of just making surprising picks and taking a receiver, because like I just kind of mentioned, we have Demario Davis, who's been extended. We have Marshawn Lattimore. We have a key piece in every branch of our defense. Like we have a starting safety that's been here in Marcus Williams. We have a starting corner who's been here. We have a starting linebacker who's been here. The defensive line is looking arguably better than it ever has. The offensive line is set in stone. Quarterback is a toss-up right now. We locked up our running back. We have Michael Thomas at receiver. We just need to compliment him, really. I guess we could also look at tight end, Brevin Jordan. I feel like would be an outstanding option to put alongside Adam Troutman. But other than that, like if you think about it, the Saints don't have too many terrible needs. And the Saints always hit home runs in the post-draft free agency as well and stuff like that. So I'm really not concerned with this. If the Saints, were this geeked up about taking Payton Turner, then dang it, let them, bro. You know what? I have no reason not to trust in Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis. I was upset when we first drafted him because it's appealing to draft, Jeremiah Owusu-Kamara, who's a head-hunting linebacker, very similar to Demario Davis, or very, very similar to what Quan Alexander was for the Saints. But who's to say we're not going to sign Quan Alexander? Who's to say we can't go and sign Josh Norman tomorrow or Quan Alexander tomorrow? Who's to say? I mean, there's some great free agents still in the market. So many players have come in and out of the Saints organization. So many free agents want to play for the Saints. Richard Sherman's still available. There's ties there. The Saints have a bigger plan, and that plan may not be putting their faith in a rookie corner to take the reins of a very reliable veteran. That could very well be Richard Sherman's job, or very well could be Josh Norman's job. And I don't think a lot of people are looking at it like that. Like a lot of these big name free agents that are still on the board are waiting until after the draft to sign. And the Saints really, really want Richard Sherman. I know a lot of people question my sources, but this one's very, very trustworthy. They want Sherman. They want him bad. They want Sherman more than a big dude wants a Big Mac, bro. I'm telling you, man. They want him. And Sherman wants to sign with the Saints, but why would in his right mind would he sign with the Saints if the Saints are going to take a first round flyer and trade up into the top 10 and get Patrick Surtain or trade up and get JC Horn? That doesn't make sense. He's not trying to be a mentor. He's trying to win championships. So that's the mentality we need to have as Saints fans. And just everyone just needs to take a deep breath, man. You know, Payton Turner could emerge into Chandler Jones. You know what? Chandler Jones. That's his pro comparison. That's what I'll go with. And I love the upside of players. You know, they could hit or miss, and that's every player. I mean, Trevor Lawrence could be a complete bust. You never know. Mm-hmm. Time will tell. And that's the entire thing about the NFL draft. It's easy to fall in love with the hyped up prospects. Who knows, you know? I mean, the guys who are drafting the players know more about the players than we do as fans. And it's just that simple. You know, the Saints have a bigger plan in motion, and it's going to be very exciting post-draft for the New Orleans Saints, more so than it is in the draft, I feel.
Man, expect the unexpected, man. Oh, man. It was... I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know what to think. I'm not gonna lie, and you know I'm covering sports, but Payton Turner was a guy I had to. Who is that? And he may pan out. We have no reason to doubt. You know the scouts, Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton. They haven't stirred us wrong, and they've been great with picking players and finding talent. De'Ami Brown, I know you mentioned him. That is a wide receiver that I'm very high on. Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith, great players that can make big plays at big moments. But I mean, when defenses clamp down on Michael Thomas, we are still looking for someone who can consistently make plays. And Emmanuel Sanders, he was able to make the plays, but he wasn't able to get in sync with Drew Brees until later in the season. And by then, Drew Brees, the injuries had taken a toll on him. So, you know, to wrap up the show, and we'll be back to cover the draft over the next couple of days because it'll be a long weekend. I want to ask you, we heard earlier about the Saints potentially moving up, possibly to get a quarterback or a cornerback. But for this question, let's say the Saints were going to get a quarterback. They haven't at this point. So does that mean they have the utmost confidence in Jameis Winston? Has, you know, the Saints organization said, hey, we're ready to rock. We have our quarterback. We got our defensive end. We're going to add some more pieces. And we're here to chase the Super Bowl. How do you feel about the Saints not taking a quarterback or moving up to get a quarterback?
Yeah, I think the only quarterback I would have been truly comfortable with the Saints trading up to get that doesn't rhyme. That's not named Trevor Lawrence, you know, is Justin Fields. And I mean, I think the Saints would have probably snagged him if he slid. But you know, the other teams, let them trade away their depth. And that's the way I look at it. When you trade up to get a quarterback or any position, really, you're trading away your depth. You know, the Saints rely on their depth. You know, that's what makes the Saints so special. You could argue, since the theme of this podcast is kind of your bread and butter, you could argue that the Saints' bread and butter is finding third, fourth, fifth round steals. They do it year after year after year. And Saints fans tend to forget that. Look at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Look at half of our roster, for crying out loud. Like, the majority of them are either undrafted or third round picks or even later. And so, yeah, I think the Saints will probably still target a quarterback. I could see, you know, they have a ton of interest in Kyle Trask. I could see that still being an option for them in the third round. But then again, they also don't need to really rush it, you know. I mean, most of the teams that need a quarterback addressed it already. And that's kind of the luxury the Saints have is, yeah, we have Jameis Winston on a 1-year deal. We have Taysom Hill, who I wouldn't rule out potentially being traded in the draft if the price is right. If there's a player that the Saints really want, I mean, who knows? They could trade Taysom Hill and make another splash. Who knows? I don't rule out anything with the Saints. I really don't. I've seen it all, I feel like. I don't know. But
look, and it's like, you know, it's so much anticipation that went into tonight for Saints fans. And, you know, we did our mock drafts. We had the arguments on Twitter, and in typical Saints fashion, it's the unexpected. But maybe this year, like I was saying, they're sticking with their bread and butter, the defense, the defensive line. And we'll see what happens as the draft goes on, man. But thank you for coming on the show today, man. We just wanted to give you guys a quick firsthand reaction. But breathe, guys. Personally, for me, honestly, going into the offseason, I still feel like the New Orleans Saints are contenders. Remember, the New Orleans Saints, swept the Bucks in the regular season pretty easily. Not a lot of difficulty. Now, we did lose when it counted the most, but I don't think the New Orleans Saints are that many pieces away from getting to that Super Bowl. And in some opinion, we were just a quarterback away. So we have Jameis, who's able to make the big plays. Now it's time to let, Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton do what they do best and find the diamonds in the rough and find those players that, can provide valuable contributions to the team. Because I do not think the Saints are looking to rebuild. A guy like Sean Payton doesn't seem like a rebuild kind of coach. Man.
Reload kind of coach.
Yeah, like we're going to figure it out, reload, and if it don't work, we're going to come back again and again. So I think the New Orleans Saints will still be contenders. This has been a shocking night for a lot of us, but I'm sure we'll have fun talking about it tomorrow. I can't wait to get on Twitter, but I want to thank my guy, Mike, for staying up late, getting in this show. This is my guy, man. We talk almost every day at this point, man. One of my best friends, man. So I really appreciate him for coming on the show. And we doing this firsthand reaction together, and we'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah,
the rest of this weekend, just to give you guys updates on the draft. I just told him about it on the show, so that's why he was like, "What?" But yeah, we're gonna come back all weekend. It's gonna be a long weekend, so brace yourself. And for the Merv Speak segment is where I give encouragement and life tips. And in today's episode, let's go with expect the unexpected. Sometimes unexpected things happen to us and we don't know what to do. We feel like it's a challenge. We feel like it's too monumental for us to get past. But remember to, when the unexpected happens, to use the resources that you already have. Everything you need is already within you. And remember that, like when talking about the Saints, we got Peyton Hunter, the defensive end. Yeah. And he's a great defensive end, and maybe he was the unexpected, but the Saints already have quality talent at Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. We have proven defensive players like Demario Davis and Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus Williams. So everything the Saints need, they already have. So now the challenge is just finding players that can provide valuable contributions. And in your own life, remember to, find ways to contribute positive, positive affirmations to your life every day. And when the unexpected happens, just don't be anxious. Don't be worried. You already have it within you. But thank you guys for listening to today's episode. It's Merv, it's Mike Balko. It's been another episode of the Black and Gold Hour podcast. Peace.